On. People.
Hi everybody. Happy Local Food Week. Welcome to my kitchen. My name is Andrea Buckett of Andrea Buckett Cooks, and we're just going to wait a few seconds for people to hop on here. But what I'd like to say is that I'm super excited to be here to share and celebrate Local Food Week with the community, and hopefully lots of people hop on to this cooking demo and we get to chat about local food, and I'll get to share this delicious recipe with you. So my name is Andrea Buckett. I'm a chef, I'm a food content creator and recipe developer, and as I said, I'm so excited to be here with you today. If you have any questions during this live feed, please feel free to ask them. I have someone on the other side of the camera, Cameron, who's my son, who's going to ask them. So say hello, give me, let me know that you're there. It's always nice to know that people are watching.
Yep, Crystal says, I wish there was a taste feature.
I know.
Farm and Food Care say hi, Andrea.
Hi. Hi. So we're celebrating Local Food Week. Really exciting to do so. Of course, we love to support our local producers and processors and farmers all year round, but this week especially we want to give them some extra love. So I want to make sure that I thank sponsors, Farm and Food Care, Icecream, and 6x16 making this video today possible. So we are making delicious strawberry and chocolate cookies. They're soft, they're chewy, they're chock full of local strawberries, which we love, and there's a little bit of chocolate, which is never a bad thing. And then we're going to turn them into delightful ice cream sandwiches using, of course, local dairy. And as we go, I'm going to pepper some information about local foods into this demo, and of course, ask questions as we go. So, any questions before we get started, Cameron?
Nothing much. Mercedes says hi, Andrea. Eggscape says thanks for doing this cooking demonstration, Andrea.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so excited to be here. Okay, so let's get started. So we are doing these strawberry and chocolate cookies, and off the top, let's talk strawberry, shall we? I'll bring those over here because strawberries, absolutely one of my favorite berries. And when I was a kid, it used to be that you had to wait for the peak months of June and July to enjoy field berries. Now we know that farmers have varieties that are fruiting well into the fall, and so we have these beautiful berries, but we also have delicious greenhouse berries that are available all year round, and they are so delicious. If you haven't given greenhouse berries a try, you definitely should. All year round, you can open up that package, and the fragrance of fresh berries, it's intoxicating. There's nothing like it. So I suggest that, of course we get excited when those peak months of June and July come around for the field berries, but you can absolutely enjoy strawberries all year round from our greenhouse sources. Okay, so let's get started. We have to start, as any good cookie batter starts with, is a half a cup of butter. And I love butter, makes everything creamy and delicious. For our sugars, we are going to add 1/3 of a cup of white granulated sugar. And all these recipes will be available at the farmandfood.org website. So, if you don't get the full recipe right now while you're watching, be sure to go check out the website for the full recipe after the live. Then we are going to go in with 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. So I'll just show you how we measure brown sugar. You want to make sure that you pack that brown sugar really well into the measuring cup, and this is a dry measure, so that's a measure that you use to measure flour and sugars and things like that. It's not a wet measure, which is more of the cup style, the glass style. But when the brown sugar comes out, it should look like that. It should look like a sandcastle, and that's how you know you have enough brown sugar. So you have to pack it. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead. Now you can do this with a spoon, but I'm just going to use my handy dandy hand mixer here to get that butter and sugar all creamed together beautifully. This is something you can get the kids involved in too. It's always great to get the kids in the kitchen, especially right now since we're all at home. You know, taking time out of your day to do an activity like cooking really does help them learn all sorts of amazing things. It helps them learn about where their food comes from, of course, and it teaches math and literacy skills, so we love that. So here we go. I'm just going to get this on high here. I'm just going to cream this all up. We also have the oven preheated to 375 degrees. So that was the first thing we did, 375 degrees. So let's get going with our dry ingredients. So you always tend to mix your dry ingredients separately from your wet ingredients. And I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything, because when you're doing a live video, it's sometimes easy to miss an ingredient. So flour, we're going to go in with flour, and we know that we produce some amazing wheat here in Ontario as well as Canada, and we export a ton of it. A lot of it gets exported and then sent back to the country in things like delicious pasta, but bar none, Canada produces, in Ontario specifically, some delicious, delicious wheat. So we have 1 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour in there. So we're going to put in some cornstarch. So cornstarch might seem like an odd ingredient to put into a cookie, but what cornstarch does is it helps to sort of make it a softer cookie, and that's a great addition to this here. We're going to put a little bit of baking soda in there. Again, just a little bit of a leavener. Perfect. So I want to make sure we have our all-purpose flour, cornstarch, baking soda, and we're just going to give that a quick little whisk just to incorporate all those delicious dry ingredients in there. And then we're going to hop back to our wet ingredients over here. How's everyone doing out there? Are you enjoying Local Food Week?
Great. Hilda says hi. Nicole Buckett's watching. Mary McLeod, hi.
Hi. Okay,
Hi,
so
Andrea from Florida. Carol Robotham is watching.
Hi, Carol. Hi, everyone. Thanks for hopping on here today to help us celebrate Local Food Week. Okay, so we are going to go in with our egg. Of course, we know that Ontario produces some of the best eggs. And so let's talk a little bit about white versus brown eggs, because sometimes there's some misunderstanding about what that means. So white hens produce white eggs and brown hens produce brown eggs. There's no nutritional difference in terms of the egg, but an interesting fact is that brown hens tend to eat more food than the white hens, so you will see that reflected in the price. So often you'll see that brown eggs are a little bit pricier because it costs more to feed them. But it's a preference, white or brown, they're both a good choice. And we have over 500 egg producers here in Ontario. So can you imagine 500 just here in Ontario, just to satisfy our need for eggs. So we're going to go ahead and just add that egg. Now we like to keep our eggs for baking at room temperature. So before you start baking, maybe just think about taking your egg out ahead of time so it comes to room temperature. Another thing that you can do if sort of you forgot to do that at the last minute is take the egg out and put it in a bowl and just put a little bit of tepid water on it, and then that'll bring it up to temperature a little bit more quickly. Okay, so we have our egg in there, and we're going to go ahead and add our vanilla. Now you can use straight up plain vanilla. I just happen to have this vanilla bean paste, and we all know vanilla can be quite expensive these days, so use whatever you have, whether it's vanilla extract or vanilla paste, but you definitely want to add that vanilla in there for that extra flavor. Okay, so we have our butter, brown sugar, granulated sugar, we have egg and vanilla, and then we're going to go ahead and chop up our strawberries.
Diana says, well done on egg story.
Thank you. Yeah, there's lots of great fun food facts out there about all the local food we produce, and I think sometimes consumers get lots of information and sometimes they're not sure where to get their information from. So Farm and Food Care is an amazing resource. If you have any questions about how your food is grown here in Ontario, it's a great resource to help answer your questions and give you the facts about food and farming in Ontario. Okay, so let's prep some berries here. And so you may or may not know, this spring the field berries are a little bit later than usual because we've had such a cold spring. So I'm using these greenhouse berries, which are just fantastic, super delicious, and they are so aromatic. I wish we had smell-o-vision so you could smell it. And we're just going to take the green stem, and there's lots of different ways you can do this. You've seen, let me see if I can find a straw. I bet you I have a reusable straw. Here we go. Now let's see if this is going to work, because I've seen these, people like to destem them by popping, this might not be thick enough. Oh yeah, here we go. So that sort of takes out most of it, but it takes out the stem. You can do that. That's a kind of fun thing to get your kids to do. Personally, I just like to use my knife and give a quick little divot cut to the top of that berry to destem it. So, and when we're thinking about storing berries, there's a couple different ways to do it. Of course, you know, if you ever go berry picking or something like that, we tend to have tons of berries that we don't use. So if you're going to use them within 1 to 2 days, just pop them in your fridge and then wash them right before you're going to use them. But you can also, there's also a cool trick that I've been using for a while, which really prolongs the life of fresh berries in your fridge. And that is to wash them in a vinegar and water solution. And it's basically a 1 part vinegar to 3 parts water. And then you rinse them and you put them in a spinner, like a salad spinner that's lined with paper towel, and spin them dry. And then stick them in an airtight container, and then they will last a week or more in your refrigerator if that's if you want to keep fresh berries longer, because you know you've picked too many or you've bought too many in the excitement of the season. And of course you can freeze them. So destem them, put them on a baking sheet, and pop them in the freezer. And when they're frozen, you can put them into a Ziploc container. Okay, so we're just for these cookies. I want to dice these berries, so I want to show you how to do that. So if you can come a little bit closer there with the camera. Let me just finish this one and I'll start again. So what I like to do to dice them is just to cut them in 2 or 3 length pieces. And then this one's pretty small, so I'm just going to cut it right down the center again, and then dice it up fairly fine. I don't want these pieces to be too huge, because what happens, because the fruit is really fresh and has a lot of moisture in it, the cookies might tend to fall apart if your pieces are too big. Any questions? Yes?
Mercedes says, could you use a fruit other than strawberries for this recipe?
You could certainly use other fruits. Any berries would work here, like blueberries, raspberries, but that's probably about it. I would stick with strawberries for this recipe, especially for this one, because this is how it was tested, and sometimes different fruit will act differently in recipes, but I think berries in general would be a good option. All right, so we need 3/4 cup of minced berries here. Now, I'm just gonna put these over here. Those will be for me to eat later. How's it going over there? Any questions?
That was the last question from Mercedes.
Excellent. Okay. The other thing we have to get ready is chocolate. So this calls for 100 grams of milk chocolate. If you love dark chocolate, by all means, you can substitute that. This bar happens to be a 100-gram bar, which is perfect. And what I like to do before I open it up, because you have to chop it, is just to wrap it on the counter. So just a quick wrap, and that'll start the chocolate breaking up into pieces. So you'll probably still have to chop it a bit, but that gets everything started. Okay, so we have all our ingredients here. We are going to add our dry ingredients right into those wet ingredients. You can use a wooden spoon for this, but using a hand mixer is helpful. So I'm just gonna clear some of this stuff away to make room for everything else. Here we go. And let's just give that a quick mix. You don't want to overmix these here. Just until everything starts coming together.
Vicky has a question. She
Sure.
says, can we use chocolate chips instead?
Yeah, you can absolutely use chocolate chips. So chocolate chips are great, and we love chocolate chips in baking because they hold their shape. You can bake with them and they'll melt a little bit, but ideally they hold their shape. Things like a chocolate bar, what happens is it will hold its shape, but it tends to melt a little bit more into the cookie, so you get a better sort of distribution of a little bit of melty bits along with some of those chunks. But without a doubt, you can absolutely use chocolate chips. All right, let's just tap these off. So this recipe makes about 20 cookies, so that'll give you 10 ice cream sandwiches. And I'm going to suggest you make a double batch. They also freeze beautifully. I know that because I made some ahead of time last week to try out the recipe, and then I froze them, and that's what we're going to use today to show you how to make those ice cream sandwiches. Perfect. Okay, so I am going to just grab my spatula. I'm going to add the berries, but before I do, let's open up. So that's 3/4 cup of chopped strawberries, and then let's just open up this chocolate bar and see where we are in terms of.
So Stowe says, these cookies sound delicious. Dorothy says, looks yummy.
Yes, I wish you could all have one. I wish I could send one out to you guys. So this didn't quite break up the way I like to, but I'm just going to pop this out into that, and I'm going to grab my knife and just cut it right on the. You could break it up with your hands too. Like, I mean, you could just break it up, but I'm going to just go in with my big old chef's knife and make quick work of it. Let's just put this out here. You could put this on a cutting board too, but there's, I don't know about you guys, but when you cook with chocolate, it just gets everywhere. Perfect, almost there. So you don't want this too big. Don't forget, Friday we're coming to you again with another live video, and we are going to do a full-out barbecue extravaganza with some delicious asparagus flatbread and turkey burgers and a grilled Greek salad, which is a really different take on Greek salad, but it's really delicious. Okay, so here we go, and that's Friday at 7. Let's just dump that chocolate right in there. And we're just gonna fold that in. So it's all combined. You can see how thick the batter is. Oh my gosh. I mean, this is delicious, right? If my home economists weren't watching, I would just dig in there and have some delicious, what's this called? Cookie dough right away. But we'll wait till it gets baked.
Eggscape has a question.
Yes.
What percentage of cocoa is in this chocolate?
Yeah, so this one is a milk chocolate. So a dark chocolate is considered 70% and over. So anything under about 60%, because each chocolate bar differs slightly, but anything 60% and below is considered a milk chocolate. And then the higher you get in chocolate, the less milk solids you get, and that more sort of bitter quality that you get in the chocolate bar.
So Bev says, oh my gosh, that sounds great. Hurry up, Friday. Madeline says, where are some of your favorite places to shop local?
So the most amazing things about shopping local is that we have a variety of choices. So, you know, you can shop at your local supermarket and just look for the Foodland Ontario sign to know that you're shopping local. You don't have to necessarily go to a farmer's market, although that is great as well. I love farmer's market because it's a real sense of community there, and there's usually other activities, and it's an outing. And if you like to support local farmer's market, that's great. But know that most major grocery stores, especially in Ontario, do strive to include a lot of local produce and food in their marketplace. Just again, keep your eye out for that Foodland Ontario sign. And then broader, made in Canada, especially for eggs and stuff like that. Hope that answers your question. Because I want to make sure that people know they can get local food everywhere. It's just not you know, at specialty markets that they can do that. All right, I'm gonna show you now, because the cookies are done and they came together quite quickly. And I'm going to show you, we've lined our baking sheet here. Now, a lot of die-hard bakers will say that the sheet pan that you need to cook on is one that has no sides, but you know what? I think most of us have this type of sheet pan at home, so that's what I'm going to use. So I have a little bit of water here. And I'm just gonna go, now this is my favorite thing for portioning out cookies or muffins. Obviously it's great for ice cream as well, but I love it for portioning out things like this, because I'm just going to go in and grab some and then pop it right down there. And you get the perfect amount in every scoop. These are the perfect size for ice cream sandwiches, and that's not to say you are not going to want to eat 2 ice cream sandwiches, but they're a nice sized cookie. Beautiful. And then we're going to go back in, we're going to wet our hands a little bit, and we are going to tap them down just a bit so they don't spread out too much. All right, so here I'm just going to tap my hand down here in the water. Just a little bit of water here, and that will help the cookie batter from sticking to your hand. It'll just flatten down really nicely there. There we go. And we're going to, I think we can get a couple on here. These don't spread out too much actually. So we're just going to put one more in the center. There we go. Oops, we have a rogue berry, everybody. All right. So we have our oven, like I said, preheated to 375 degrees, and these get baked for about 11 minutes. But of course, I need some ahead of time for you. But let's just pop those in there and put the timer on. And we're going to put those on the middle rack. And I always like to, it always depends on your oven. So if the recipe says it takes 11 or 12 minutes, just set your timer to about 10 minutes and then go in and check them. These are a bit softer cookies, so they're the type of cookie that might seem a little bit soft to the touch if you're touching them when they're in the oven, but when you pull them out and as they cool, they're perfectly cooked. You can always smell when they're done, right? If you've baked enough, you know as soon as you smell them, chances are they're done, so yes. So any questions?
Stowe says, where can I find this recipe?
So all of these recipes will be available at farmandfoodcare.org. And this recipe, I think this recipe is from eggs, the egg website.
Eggscape, do you recommend chilling for a few hours before baking?
So that's a really good question. Because this wasn't my recipe, I thought often cookies that have butter in them, you want to chill them and then bake them, because what happens is if they're not chilled, they spread out a ton on the baking sheet. But you know what? I followed this recipe. I trusted the recipe and where it came from, and it turned out perfectly. It turns out that they don't spread out too much at all. So yeah.
Farm and Food Care, where did you get your passion for food and cooking?
Wow, that's a long answer, but you know what? I've been really passionate about food since, I'll tell you, me and my sister used to watch the Food Network on my parents' bed back in the day of Emeril Lagasse and the Two Fat Ladies and the Urban Peasant and Walk with Yan. Those are Canadian names you probably recognize. And ever since, I've just had this passion. I never thought I could cook for a living, so I actually thought I was going to be a phys ed teacher, but lo and behold, over the last 20 years, I have worked in the food industry and made a career of it. And you know what? It's my life, and I love it, and I love sharing that passion with people. Okay, shall we talk cookies? I'm going to show you what they look like, because we're not going to wait 11 minutes. Who has 11 minutes to wait these days? This is what these delicious cookies look like, and you can see this, they're peppered with strawberry and chocolate, and they're soft. I just want to show you here. I'll just crack one open. You can see how soft they are. They're nice and soft and chewy. And these ones came out of the freezer. So like I said, you can freeze them. Now, should we talk ice cream? We're gonna pack these with a little bit of vanilla ice cream. Of course, you could use chocolate or you could use vanilla as well. It's completely up to you, Neapolitan. What I will say is, when you're shopping for ice cream, make sure you look at the ingredients, because you want cream to be an ingredient. Lots of different brands of ice cream do not use cream or milk in ice cream. So always look at the ingredient listing. A couple things that I want to say about milk, because again, it's so much information out there about how we raise our dairy cattle here in Canada, or dairy cows here in Canada, and there's no hormones given to our cows. Okay, that has been banned since I think it's 1999. So we do not give our cows hormones here in Canada. So please don't worry about that. Our milk is free of added hormones, so don't worry about that. But let's get the ice cream out. Have a look at those cookies, Cam. Okay, here we go. All right, this looks funny. This is our ice cream. And what I like to do is, and this is a great thing to do if you're entertaining, is to sort of scoop. These are just little scoops. I use this same size scooper that I use for my ice cream to scoop out, that I use for the cookies, to scoop out the ice cream. Just put those onto a sheet pan that has some parchment on there, and then freeze them. Now you can see these guys got away from me. But what you can then do is just sort of pull them off. And you could actually just pop these into a Ziploc bag as well. So the next time you have a craving for ice cream sandwiches, you can grab some cookies. This can all be in the freezer, guys. You can do this ahead of time. Yes?
Diane says, your cornstarch tip was new to me. Can you use that in other cookie recipes to keep them soft?
I would say 100% yes. But baking, as you know, and this is a hard one to answer, because baking is definitely a science. And so hopefully when people create and develop recipes, they do so because they want a certain outcome. So what happens is, if you introduce a new ingredient to a baking recipe, you might not get the same outcome, or it might change the flavor, but it's cooking. I always also encourage people to get in the kitchen and just try it. So if you have a favorite recipe that is too crispy for you, like a cookie that's too crispy for you, just try adding maybe a teaspoon and a half of cornstarch and see if that helps. They're not going to be ruined. You're still going to eat them, let's face it. All right, shall we make some ice cream sandwiches? Let's do this. This will be for my filming crew afterwards. Okay, so we are going to take 2 cookies, and let's take this guy here. See, that's the perfect size here. And another one. And then you're going to want to sandwich them together. This is hard work, guys. Sandwich them together firmly, press firmly. Now you could also get some jimmies. Do you know what jimmies are? They're little like sprinkles, the long sprinkles, or sprinkles, and you could pepper them with sprinkles. You can also wrap them right now and then store them in the freezer just like this. But come on, I'm gonna make another one because I've got 2 hungry boys who I know are dying to try these. There's another one. Let's do another one. I hope this was fun, guys. I hope you had fun watching this food demo and chatting about Ontario strawberries and dairy and eggs and wheat and all the delicious things that we produce here. I think I should try this. Is it rude of me to eat in front of you? Strawberries and cream. It's like a match made in heaven. They're BFFs. Super delicious. So that is our live demo for today. If you want these recipes, head on over to farmandfoodcare.org to get them. Don't forget to tune in Friday night. We are doing a grilled asparagus flatbread with a ricotta lemon cheese spread. We are doing apple and cheddar turkey burgers, which are to die for. And we are doing a grilled Greek vegetables topped off with a tomato vinaigrette and feta cheese, of course. And it's going to be delicious. It's going to be a lot of recipes. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please join in. If you have any questions, even after this live broadcast, please feel free to ask them down below, and I'll pop on and answer all of your questions. That's all for today. Happy Local Food Week, everybody, and we will see you on Friday at 7.